We now present For the Record.
Welcome to For the Record. I'm Will Keneally. A busy week here in Wisconsin saw former President Donald Trump visit the Badger State. Now later on in the show, we'll get insight into that visit and more on the housing woes facing Madison as UW students move in. But we start this week with K-12 schools. Next week, students from across the state will return to classrooms. Now in Madison, the start of the semester will also be the first semester for the new Madison superintendent. Now it takes the helm amid a pending school referendum this fall, staffing and busing concerns. Now we spoke with him as he and a handful of district VIPs toured the system's 4 main high schools. Here's more from our conversation with Joe Gothard. So we're now on the bus, literally to your alma mater, La Follette High School. How meaningful is it to have somebody from the district now take over?
Yeah, you know, what's on my mind right now is these are buses that I took as a player and as a coach to come and compete against Memorial or West at Mansfield Stadium. So this feels eerily and in a really good way familiar. So it's a great feeling, you know, knowing that that this community, even before I ride back, continued the legacy of support that they provided. And today I get to celebrate their hard work. And, you know, with our communities, we open up the school year really, really meaningful.
Yeah, we were talking earlier about some of the changes that you've seen even in your own school. Any kind of fond memories from La Follette that kind of resonate with you as you
know, I think like so many, some of my closest friends are students who I went all the way through with. And actually I've run into a few of them. You know, I don't share my calendar with my childhood friends. So there are events where I've all of a sudden run into a childhood friend, and it's been just a remarkable feeling to reconnect in that way. I think the other memories are just, you know, the wonderful teachers I had. You know, some who, through some challenging times, you know, were there for me and there for so many others as well. And of course, then I got to go and be their colleagues too. So to go from a teacher-student relationship to a peer-to-peer friendship, just really uniquely special.
So I think it was earlier this year that survey went out to ask members of the district what they were thinking about kind of the busing and the staggered starts. What feedback do we get? How are families thinking going into the school year?
You know, I've been a 31-year educator, and I know anytime you ask folks how they feel about changes to schedules, to routines, you're going to get mixed results. What I think our community wants is they want to be able to depend on the times that we say. They want to know that this isn't going to change again so that they can build new routines. I understand that some of those changes may bring hardships or changes to families. I've heard about before school and after school care, for example, is very challenging. I'm willing to work with as many partners as possible, including our families, to ensure that it's not too much of a burden on them.
And do we feel confident with the bus system going forward?
I do, but you know, we'll work out those challenges as they come. You know, the first couple of weeks are always difficult, right? New routes, new students, they, you know, may get on the wrong bus or not know exactly where it's going to go. But I know this much: we are going to communicate, and we are going to have high expectations to ensure we get students to and from school in an orderly way.
A lot of ground to kind of make up. How's the district recovering post-pandemic?
You know, I talked earlier today to another affiliate around, you know, school is a very dependent thing in students' lives, right? So students depend on their community around them. And at the time of the pandemic, it became all of a sudden an independent thing. You know, you were maybe in your bedroom, maybe at a library if it was open. You had to depend on the adults that were there. Not the ones that school provides and that the community provides, and it was just truly challenging. So I think the lack of connection really did place a burden, not just on our students, but on our families and certainly our community. I'm hoping that this year we can restore that connection in new and better ways, and that students and families and staff can feel supported.
So this November, voters will be tasked with either approving or rejecting school referendum. What would you do to make your case to voters why that's needed?
Well, one, our state revenue cap limits really place a burden on school districts. We don't have a spending problem in Madison. We have a revenue problem, meaning that our cost to continue each year continues to go up, and we do not receive the revenue in order to compensate, to make up that difference. So that's the deficit that we have. The other piece is that we are not federally reimbursed through our state for special education. That's to the tune of $66.4 million in the Madison Metropolitan School District. And just to give an equivalent to that, that's 700 teachers. Not to say that we would spend all of that on teachers, but just to give the community a sense, the listeners a sense for the scale of $66.4 million. It is significant. The other is our facilities. We have aging facilities in Madison. We have dedicated $5 million a year in deferred maintenance, which is woefully inadequate. Our buildings and our community deserve more, and our students deserve to have a flexible, relevant learning environment for the future, and our staff want the same as well.
How would you kind of quantify what that means, the impact that those facility improvements have in the classroom?
Yeah, well, I wasn't here, of course, in 2020 when it passed, and I followed it. I saw the dreams and the vision of the district's plans, and to be here and see the results of this, it's amazing. As a kid who grew up on the east side, attending Albion Senate La Follette, and spent the bulk of my career at La Follette High School, I don't even truly recognize it when I'm inside, and it's wonderful. So I'm excited to see the other schools as well and celebrate with community and thank our community for their generous support for the 2020 referendum.
So I'm pulling this from an Isthmus column that you may not have seen, but kind of in the face of declining enrollment, there are ideas perhaps to maybe look at shutting down some Madison schools. Is that something that we'd consider at any point? What would the horizon look like for that?
Declining enrollment is a phenomena that's brought up in many areas. One, there's a national birth rate decline. So naturally, there are communities, cities, areas that are seeing declining enrollment. Madison's enrollment has been 25,000 students for at least the past 20 years. I'm not sensing the kind of decline that would require us to shutter buildings. And if we did that, it'd be through a very thoughtful engagement process with our Board of Education, with our stakeholders, because our school buildings in this district have a tradition, have a legacy, and they're part of our community. We want to take care of our assets and make sure that we're providing the best education possible.
When we come back, we get insight into former President Donald Trump's visit to La Crosse this week. We'll be right back after this.
This portion of News 3 Now is sponsored by Madison Gas and Electric.
MG&E, building your community energy company for the future through the power of working together. Committed to cleaner, more sustainable energy, driven by innovation, fostered by shared values. Visit MGE2050.com.
Looking for the best value in contact lenses? At Stanton Optical, score an annual supply of AccuView Oasis plus a free contact lens eye exam for only $189. The numbers are in. At Stanton Optical, you save a whopping $280. You're not going to find a better deal with the other guys. Now that's what I call value. Book your eye exam today. Stanton Optical. Easy's our thing.
Shopping online for a Purple mattress? We get it. With Purple's unique Gel Flex grid and multiple foam layers, you'll experience effortless sleep that's motion adaptive, temperature balanced, pressure relieving, and ultra supportive. But which Purple mattress is right for you? Come to Denver Mattress and test for yourself. During Purple's Labor Day sale, save up to $1,000 on mattress and base bundles and get an instant gift. Shop Purple at Denver Mattress, the easiest way to find your perfect Purple.
I was a Kamala Harris supporter. That changed after an illegal alien murdered my son, running him over, then driving back and forth over Drew's body 3 times. The man who killed my son had been arrested previously, but Kamala Harris let him go. As San Francisco's DA, Kamala was soft on crime. As a senator, she supported releasing criminal aliens back into our neighborhoods. Kamala Harris is dangerous.
Preserve America PAC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
MG&E, building your community energy company for the future through the power of working together. Committed to cleaner, more sustainable energy, driven by innovation, fostered by shared values. Visit MGE2050.com.
You're going to buy a beautiful house. That's called the American dream.
Welcome back. Another week in Wisconsin yielded another visit by a presidential campaign. On Thursday, Republican candidate Donald Trump held a town hall event in La Crosse. Now, it's an intense focus by the presidential campaigns on Wisconsin here, also on the key western part of the state. Now, joining us now for a breakdown of the Trump event is UW La Crosse political science professor Anthony Chergosky. And thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So I want to get kind of to the heart of this. It was a little bit different. It's not a generic kind of standard Trump rally that we've seen. Is there a meaningful difference between a town hall and a rally that we've seen him do often?
I think there can be a meaningful difference because it might play to candidates' strengths in different ways. When I think about candidates who really thrived in the town hall setting, I think about Bill Clinton. The town hall setting rewards candidates who can connect with voters and who can explain things face to face with voters. Now, that's very different than a mega campaign rally. When I think about a candidate who thrived in that large campaign rally environment, I think more about Barack Obama than Bill Clinton. But certainly the large rally is a signature feature of Trump's campaigns. So this format in lacrosse was a real change from what we're used to seeing. And Donald Trump himself indicated that he was a little surprised that this was a town hall format as opposed to a large rally. So it causes candidates to need to connect with the audience in different ways. Some candidates really thrive in the town hall format, others not so much.
So I think one of the surprises that we saw was perhaps one of those unscripted moments. Trump broke news between the Michigan and Wisconsin events here.
What we're going to do is for people that are using IVF, which is fertilization, the government is going to pay for it, or we're going to get or mandate your insurance company to pay for it, which is going to be great.
Was that a surprise to you at all? It seems like that's something that you might see a little bit more on the left than a Republican presidential candidate put forward.
It was certainly interesting to see Donald Trump roll out that policy proposal. Presidential candidates, though, roll out all kinds of policy ideas that never become law. It's one thing to say something during the campaign. It's one thing to put out a policy proposal during the campaign. It's another thing for that policy proposal to actually become law. So, Will, one question that I have is how a Republican-controlled Congress would react to this proposal regarding IVF. Would a Republican-controlled Congress be willing to devote government resources to this? Would they be willing to put additional requirements on insurance companies? So it's always one thing to see how these things play during the campaign. It's another thing when the campaign becomes governance.
I also want to turn to the moderator, Tulsi Gabbard, a former Democratic Congresswoman. Does having someone in that position signal to Democratic voters that Trump is okay for Democrats to support?
It's interesting because I think that Tulsi Gabbard and the Robert F. Kennedy endorsement try to do the same thing for Donald Trump, which is to bring in political outsiders and to try to emphasize the ticket's appeal to voters who might generally be fed up with the political system and might be looking at someone like a Tulsi Gabbard, someone like an RFK, who has more of that outsider status. Now, certainly Donald Trump's political brand is also based on him being a political outsider, him not being part of the political establishment. So when I think about Gabbard, when I think about Kennedy, I think about the way that they might be able to develop the political brand for the Trump ticket.
Now, we've seen these trips this week. We'll have Walz back in Wisconsin on Monday. We'll see Biden back in Wisconsin later this week. Why so many trips to Wisconsin, and especially targeting that western Wisconsin region?
Yeah, Wisconsin remains every bit as pivotal as it always has been and always was expected to be in the 2024 election cycle. Statistically, Wisconsin was the decisive state in the 2020 election. It was the decisive state in the 2016 election. And we know that in both of those elections, Wisconsin was decided by about 20,000 votes each. So we would fully expect the 2024 campaign to follow that pattern. Now, Harris has expanded the map from where the map was with Biden in the campaign. During the final stages of Joe Biden's presidential campaign, he was going all in on Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Those three states remain absolutely critical, but Harris has expanded the map to make some other states competitive, including North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada. So Wisconsin and Western Wisconsin remain central to this election, even as the race has become broadened to more swing states with Harris at the top of the Democratic ticket.
Well, Professor Chergosky, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Will.
These town hall events provide the opportunity for these presidential candidates to interact with some local voters. Now, after the Trump town hall, we spoke with Megan Heschler, who joined the former president on stage during the event. So you got to be upstage behind the president. How did that end up happening?
So So it was just a random occurrence. I was just walking in, and one of the campaign people asked if I would like to come up on stage and be a part of the town hall, and I said absolutely, yes. It was a beautiful time, a beautiful experience, just to feel the love from the crowd, the energy, the exuberance, for our country. Like, I guess I just felt the patriotism for America, the patriotism for each other. It was just an honor to be here, gathered together, so.
When we come back, college students are moving back to the city, exacerbating some of the problems of the city's already strained housing resources. We check in with the city alder working to address some of these problems right after this.
Building up the middle class will be a defining goal of my presidency.
She'll do it with new ideas to make middle-class life more affordable. New caps on the price of medicine, new investments in clean energy to bring down costs for families. And while Trump will cut taxes for the super rich, she'll cut taxes for the rest of us. A stronger middle class, a future we can afford. Climate Power Action and FFPAC are responsible for the content of this ad.
If you've been injured in a truck crash, you know what a life-changing experience it can be. What you may not know is that trucking law is extremely complex. We have a powerful team with the knowledge and resources needed to win. Don't wait, call Gruber Law Offices today. We have a history of top-notch results and over 35 years of winning for injured people. And there's never a fee until we win. Gruber Law Offices, one call, that's all.
They are some of the hottest videos on social media. Those videos claiming to instantly get rid of bags under your eyes. Annette Figueroa is here to tell us why she says this one is for real.
This one is for real, and what it does is it tightens and lifts the appearance of bags underneath your eyes. And not only does it work on the bags, it works on the appearance of crow's feet, fine lines, and wrinkles.
Try it this Labor Day for only $14.95 plus free shipping. Visit Plexidermtrial.com or call the number on your screen.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
Everyday prices are too high. Food, rent, gas, back to school clothes. That is called Bidenomics. A loaf of bread costs 50% more today. Ground beef is up almost 50%. There's not much left at the end of the month. Bidenomics is working. The price of housing has gone up. It feels so hard to just be able to get ahead. And we are very proud of Bidenomics.
Welcome back. Housing concerns are not new to Madison, but the results of a new survey conducted by the UW paint a stark picture. The rents per bed for off-campus housing here in Madison rank among the highest in the Big Ten. Now, the average per bed cost for off-campus housing in Madison is $1,273. That would mean a student working a $15 per hour job would need to work more than 20 hours per week to afford rent alone. Now, the study defines affordable off-campus housing as $980 per month, and only 31% of housing options near campus are below $1,000 per month. Now, where do we go from here? For that, we turn to Madison Alder Juliana Bennett, and thanks so much for joining us.
Of course, thank you.
So we talked about this in terms of numbers. Does that paint a fair picture of the housing challenges Madison faces? Are there things that the numbers miss?
Yeah, I guess I want to just backtrack a little bit and say that I'm really glad that we have finally completed the study. It was something that started at least 2 years ago on my end when I first reached out to the university. And to see it come full circle and finally have numbers feels very vindicating, and also I felt as though the study really validated a lot of the student experience when it comes to housing. When we talk about numbers, $1,200 a month is a lot for students. One thing that I think the study wasn't able to fully capture, just because it is very difficult to discern student income. Because they might be receiving, on top of receiving financial aid, the FAFSA application might say this is how much your family can contribute to your education. That doesn't necessarily mean that your family is contributing that money for your education. I'll just like put a micro example. My best friend from my freshman year of college is a triplet, and her and her three siblings went when they went to college. The FAFSA application wasn't able to take apart the fact that like her family was paying for three siblings at the same time. So what the university might assume that her family's contributing to her based off of the FAFSA isn't necessarily the case. And that is just like one example of her having to take out tens of thousands of dollars of loans to pay for housing while in college, on top of working 15, 20 hours a week and going to school full time. Is an experience kind of like that happens to students all the time.
With the campus so ingrained into the city, it might be hard to parse off-campus student housing versus those living in those buildings that are just young working professionals. Now, those are two very different people in two very different economic positions. How does Madison parse that difference?
Honestly, I think that the survey recommendations help us better be able to discern between the two different populations. Like when this at the end of the survey, when we talk about the recommendations to private developers to design housing that is like most economically conducive to students in the entire market, just putting that into perspective, when we look at new student housing being built on board, those go by the unit, or like by the bed, I should say, and not by the unit itself. So speaking for myself, when I came onto campus and I told my dad that our 5-bedroom apartment costs $5,000 a month, my dad was like, "What the heck are you doing? Why are you spending that on an apartment?" But no, they look at it by the bed. So my 5-bedroom apartment was like $1,000 a month. And the way it's designed currently sometimes doesn't allow it like a flexibility to convert into other housing types. So let's take a different example and look at an apartment building that was built, gosh, it has to be like several years ago now, like Grand Central. Grand Central rents out by the unit. And what that means is like, if for, I don't know, some stretch of the imagination, there was a surplus in student housing and a deficit in family housing, that housing could then be converted into like housing for families with kids or whatever.
So I think you touched on it a little bit there, but I want to introduce one other number from the survey. It says that rentals near campus face a 98% occupancy rate. Now, they generally say that a healthy rate is somewhere between 90 and 95%. Is it as simple as just increasing the supply if demand continues to be high?
Yeah. So it's kind of like both and, like we have to, and also it's hard. Just going back a year ago for myself, when Kurt Paulson came to speak at the Madison City Council meeting. Kurt Paulson is a professor at UW-Madison and like the housing Yoda. He shared that when it comes to housing downtown Madison, it is unaffordable and it will continue to be unaffordable because it's downtown Madison and there is there's just not enough land. But also, we can't afford not to build, because if we don't build, then it's just going to keep on increasing even more at a more steep rate than it already is. So in a sense, yes, we need to build more housing. We need to build it in a way that is sustainable, not just for right now, but for 50 years from now. And also, I think just thinking about the market as a whole, when we're seeing that there's plenty of students that are opting for housing that is like 20 years or older, but isn't being renovated, we also need to make sure that we're taking care of that housing alongside building new housing.
Madison Alder, Juliana Bennett, thanks so much for joining us. We'll be right back after this.
To everyone out there who loves Culver's,
the feeling is mutual. Everything's made fresh.
Everything. Everything.
It's our pleasure.
This is me and my happy place.
I wouldn't trade our Culver's for any other restaurant.
Culver's.
Yay! We love our guests.
Love.
Love.
As much as our guests love us.
This is me and my happy place.
From Wisconsin with love.
Welcome to Delicious.
Now at Menards, save big money on your next project with an 11% rebate on everything. Protect your cars, trucks, and toys with Shelter Logic. We carry a great selection of easy-to-assemble canopies, shelters, and garages that hold up against the elements. This 10 by 20 auto shelter is rip-resistant and has a heavy-duty steel frame. Get yours today for $249.99 after 11% rebate.
Save big money at Menards.
Donald Trump's back, and he's out for control.
I would have every right to go after them.
Complete control.
I will wield that power very aggressively.
And he has a plan to get it.
Detailed plans for exactly what our movement will do.
It's called Project 2025, a 922-page blueprint to make Donald Trump the most powerful president ever. Overhauling the Department of Justice, giving Trump the unchecked power to seek vengeance, eliminating the Department of Education, and defunding K-12 schools, requiring the government to monitor women's pregnancies and severe cuts to Medicare and Social Security. Donald Trump may try to deny it, but those are Donald Trump's plans.
Well, revenge does take time, I will say that. And sometimes revenge can be justified.
He'll take control, we'll pay the price.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
In the 608, weekdays only on News 3 Now this morning.
Welcome back. This morning, we will leave you with a programming note. As News 3 Now is launching our 3 for the People election coverage, we're bringing you coverage of some of the issues that you will see along the campaign trail. Now, let's start this Tuesday with an in-depth look into how abortion impacts Wisconsinites and what candidates are saying about it on the campaign trail. And that does it for us this week. I'm Will Keneally. Have a great rest of your weekend.
This has been For the Record.